Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Here on Thanksgiving Day, let me say to you and yours, I've been very grateful. I've been very fortunate to have a spectacular group, really, in my opinion, the best group of boxing fans here on YouTube. I've learned a lot from you. I'm very thankful. Let me wish everyone here a very happy Thanksgiving 2016. Now that said, always remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let me also add too, I've noticed in the last month, maybe it's a sign of the times, a lot of you have started using my Dwyer 70905 @gmail email account to email me films of fights, right? I hope you continue to do so. I greatly appreciate it. A lot of people are asking me about boxers. I don't know. The way I find out about a lot of fighters is, people will say, hey, what do you think about, Ron Brown? And then I'll say, Ron Brown, who? Then I'll research Ron Brown. So I appreciate all the films I'm getting and all the insight I'm getting. Let me point out too, I know someone sent me, and I read the email, someone sent me an email about Bernard Hopkins' weight, right? Days out before his fight with Smith. They feel that that's the opportunity of a lifetime, taking Bernard Hopkins' opponent. Not so fast. Smith is really one-handed. I understand he took out Andres Fonfara, but Fonfara was really being reckless in that fight, right? Will Rosinski doesn't have a big punch, and that's the guy against whom Smith went 10 rounds. It's a 12-round fight. John David Jackson has left Kovalev's corner just for the time being to help Bernard with his training, right? It would take a lot for me to be moved off Bernard Hopkins in that fight. I expect Bernard to win that fight that's going to take place in Los Angeles in a few weeks. Well, let's talk about, autopsy on the night. Gamblers were taken care of, right? We had the opponent in the Ike Chilemba fight, right? That opponent was actually favored. Public might not have known about him. Groovestick, gamblers knew about him. He delivered, right? He stopped Ike Chilemba. You won there. We did lose on the Darlise Perez fight, right? I had his opponent, Maurice Hooker. That fight went to a draw, very hard to win draws. And on the Andre Ward fight, right? Andre Ward by decision was part of our hedge. It paid greater than even money. So while you didn't make a lot of money to put a kid through college, right? The other half of the hedge was the plus 160 on the under 10.5 rounds. While you weren't able to put a kid through college by winning Andre Ward by decision, just understand you have your money today, not the casino, right? And you did make a small profit, beer money, on that fight. So now, let's talk about the actual fight, right? This is not a spilled milk video. The hedge held. Andre Ward won by decision. That was part of the hedge, right? But let's talk about the actual fight itself. Now, I've read reports of a great Ward comeback in this fight. Now, what fight did the rest of the world see? Because I haven't been able to find it on film. Let me say this too. I have an obligation here online. I take it seriously. It's to boldly go wherever the film takes me, right? While I love the sport of boxing, understand, this is really a gambling site. I'm trying to get an edge on the casino. The only way to do so is to live in the real world, not some PR world, right? I have the utmost respect for everyone involved in this event, right? I greatly respect Andre Ward. I greatly respect Sergey Kovalev. But what we need to do is to not be political here. This isn't a political campaign. This isn't a likability contest. What we need to do is to actually be real. Talk about what actually happened. Now, this little part of the internet is actually a bit of a community. I want the community to be heard on this one. Right? I'm just going to ask a question. If you're a subscriber, if you leave comments on videos, leave a comment here, whether you agree with me or not, on what I'm going to say later in this video. But if this fight took place in Russia, do you believe the scorecards would have been what they were? Do you believe Andre Ward would have won the fight by 1 round? Right? Let's change it. If you're going to answer that question, there's a second part to it. And that second part is, if this fight took place in a neutral place, not Ward's backyard of the United States, not Kovalev's backyard of Russia, but let's say this fight took place in the UK, right? You tell me, the identical fight, who would be declared the winner? Well, let's get after it. Quite frankly, I'm old school. I don't understand the scoring. Folks, I'm not close to understanding the scoring in this fight. Understand, let me back up a little bit. Let me just tell a quick story. I noticed Andre Ward on his Twitter account has a picture of one of the sport's great figures, Muhammad Ali. What I want people to remember about Ali is that the morning after Ali's fight against Joe Frazier, Joe Frazier's actually with reporters. The phone rings. It's Muhammad Ali. Right? This is the first fight. At the time, they were telling you that, if Ali just didn't get dropped later in that fight, maybe he would have won the fight. Right? Ali calls Joe Frazier. Frazier says to Ali, I'm not going to talk to you until you call me champ. There's a pause on the other line. And then Ali says, okay, champ. They continue to have the conversation. Now, I believe everyone here needs to be real about what happened in this fight. Right? They need to be honest. I've read a lot of the comments from entourage people, from folks in the corner, and stuff like that, trainers, and what have you. Right? But what I suspect is going to happen is that over time, the truth is going to get out. People are going to sit down, they're going to watch the fight, then they're going to think, whoa, this is not what I heard. This is not what I've been told. And over time, boxing, which really is, something that changes over time based on perception. Right? Over time, boxing is going to realize what happened on fight night. Just like now, if you look at a film of Joe Frazier against Ali, that first fight, folks, it's not close. Right? Joe Frazier spanks Ali. So, to answer the question, let's do it head on. Who won this fight? The champion did. The person who entered the ring with 3 belts. And that was Sergey Kovalev. Right? Let's talk about it. Round 1. Kovalev comes out. Let me say here that before the fight I talked about Kovalev's jab. I was wrong. I said Kovalev's jab's underrated. It's better than advertised. Folks, it's much better than advertised. Kovalev's jab might be the best jab in the sport. The crowd's chanting SOG. Andre Ward is getting battered with a Carlos Monzon, Larry Holmes level jab. It's a great jab. With 1:35 left in the round, and I'll name times from time to time here so you can quickly look it up, Andre Ward gets staggered. He has no idea how to handle the jab. Now, before the fight, I said that I didn't think Andre Ward could win the fight on his back foot. Now I've seen 12 rounds of it. I still don't think Andre Ward can beat this guy on his back foot. Right? I still don't. Well, let me say, there is one person. The broadcasting is hit or miss. I have no idea what fight Max Kellerman was watching. I get the feeling the rest of the crew was here watching this fight, and maybe they told Max Kellerman to show up in the wrong location. Maybe he was watching two other guys. But the one guy who seems to have a level head on the broadcasting team is Roy Jones. Right? Roy Jones does a spectacular job this fight. If you end up watching the HBO replay of this, I want you to focus on what Roy Jones has to say. Well, let me say this. The entire first round, Andre Ward doesn't get inside. He's outside in limbo. The matchup I want the boxing hardcore to look at is Kovalev's jab versus Andre Ward's right hand, right? The right hand is immediately across from the jab. Understand, Kovalev's jab is so good that Ward can't do anything with his right hand. He has to keep the right hand home. Right? Kovalev clearly takes the first round. Clearly. Harold Letterman gives Kovalev the first round of the fight. We get to the second round of the fight. Kovalev lands several hard punches. Folks, this is before the knockdown. Right? This is before the knockdown. Then Kovalev knocks Andre Ward down. It's not a slip. Right? Andre looks like he's been in a car crash. He gets up. You could tell he's been hit and hurt. Right? It's clearly a 10-8 round. Clearly a 10-8 round. So let's do the math right here. Let's freeze it. At the end of the second round, Kovalev is up by 3 points. 3 points. In a 12-round fight, there are 10 rounds to go. Right? Andre Ward would have to win 70% of the remaining rounds. Just think it through. 70% of the remaining rounds to win. It would have to be the kind of fight where you notice the other guy is creating a tsunami. Right? The comeback would have to be on the level of Juan Manuel Marquez's comeback, the first Manny Pacquiao fight. Well, then we get to the third round. Right? Understand, Kovalev continues pursuing Andre Ward. Right? Andre Ward, his left hand is so covered that even his best punch of the fight, a straight left, comes after the first left has been blocked. The third round's convincing. I gave the third round to Kovalev. Harold Letterman gives the third round to Kovalev. So you're 3 rounds into the fight, and Kovalev is up by 4 rounds. 4 rounds. Now let's get to the 4th and 5th rounds. Let me tell you, I gave Kovalev both of the rounds. Now before people think I'm a crackpot, I just want people to know how lopsided the fight is. Harold Lederman and I only disagree on one of the first 6 rounds. Let me challenge, because I've read a lot of the comments here, and I know a lot of people are very bullish on Andre Ward's performance. They believe it's a masterpiece. What I want people to do is to take the 5th round out of context. If you have a tape of the fight, right? If you have a tape of the fight, kill the volume. Sit down with friends and just watch the 5th round. You're going to see Kovalev in a round in which he does not get a knockdown thoroughly outbox Andre Ward. Right? Understand, Kovalev doesn't start the fight strong and then fade. He gets the knockdown early. But in the 5th round, he's outboxing Andre Ward. Right? The 5th round. At the end of the 6th round, and I don't know how this fight's playing out internationally. I admit I've been tied up in my own life, right, the last few days. But at the end of the 6th round, understand on my scorecard, and again, I'm someone who loves these fighters, right? At the end of the 6th round, I had Kovalev up by 7 points. In other words, I have Kovalev sweeping the first 6 rounds. When you add in the knockdown, he's up by 7. Understand, mathematically, from that stage forward, and you tell me if I'm alone in this scorecard, Andre Ward would need a 10-8 round just to break even. Right? Now let me say, we get to the 7th round. Now Harold Lederman, this is on the telecast, actually says what I said here online before the fight. Lederman says, I don't think he can beat a guy like Kovalev backing up. Folks, it's clear. Understand, the best punch either fighter has in this fight, either fighter, is Kovalev's jab. Right? When Kovalev is coming forward behind that jab, that's high-level stuff. Right? When Andre Ward's backing up against a guy with really one of the best, I would argue, the best jab in the sport. Why? What makes it good? It's hard, right? It's the kind of jab that's so good, Kovalev can drop his hands. He doesn't have to keep this left hand home because his jab's so sudden, an opponent is afraid, literally afraid, to open up on their right side because Kovalev might be able to drop you with a jab. It's a Vladimir Klitschko type of thudding jab. Right? So when Andre is backing up, and when he's getting hit with this jab, and when you're looking at the CompuBox numbers, and you know Kovalev hits harder than Ward, and the CompuBox numbers are close in a round, and you see that Kovalev has landed several jabs, understand, that's not a round that Andre has dominated. Well, I'll say this. After Max Kellerman in the 7th round, and understand Max might as well have been wearing an Andre Ward University outfit, carrying a set of pom-poms. But Max actually says this looks like a good big man versus a good little man. Think about that. Says that in the 7th round. Andre Ward wins the 7th round. Right? I thought he outworked Kovalev. I thought Kovalev, didn't do too much in that 7th round. So then we get to the 8th round. Now, can we agree that a challenger should not be able to win a fight clinching? Can we agree with that? If you've been knocked down and you're facing the champ and you get up and you need to win rounds, right? You need to win rounds. To me, that means you need to be active. You can't be constantly clinching the champion in a fight where you start out with a deficit. Well, to me, I saw too much clinching. In the 8th round, I thought Kovalev was more active. I thought Kovalev tied up Ward's left hand. Even the clinching is close, folks. I thought the 8th round went to Kovalev. Right? We get to the 9th round. Now, Roy Jones makes a great comment. He comments on Kovalev's footwork. It's worth noting because, as I've said, Kovalev is always balanced. You don't find a guy who hits as hard as Kovalev, one-punch knockout power, who is always even keel, right? Kovalev never looks overextended. Well, let's just say, somehow in the 9th round, Max Kellerman, who 2 rounds earlier says it looks like a good big man against a good little man, says that it's an even fight. Well, I'll just say this. I gave the round to Andre Ward, but the round is so close that Harold Lederman gives Kovalev the round. Right? Folks shouldn't lose titles on rounds like this in fights where they've gotten knockdowns. Right? Let me say this too. It's round 9 with 23 seconds left, where Andre Ward finally gets inside. As I've said, when Ward gets deep in the pocket, it's a mismatch in Ward's favor. The challenge for Ward is getting in the pocket against a guy with this jab and this power. We get to the 10th round. Right? Andre Ward tries a bolo punch and gets hit. Now, what I'm going to challenge people to do, right? Because this deviates from some of the judges' scorecards, is again, take the 10th round out of sequence. Sit down with some buddies you trust and watch the 10th round of the fight with the volume off. Folks, it's a clear Kovalev round. I don't know what the judges are watching. Right? I have no idea what the judges are watching this round. Because the 10th round is a clear Kovalev round. Jim Lampley at one point says, Andre Ward needed to win every round. He may have just lost a round that he needed to win. Right? Lampley says this at the end of the 10th round. Harold Lederman gives the 10th round to Kovalev. Right? Now, understand the problem here. Kovalev dominates the first half of the fight. Right? He dominates. Forget the post-fight comments and all. Kovalev dominates the first half of the fight. For Andre Ward to come back, he needed to equally dominate the second half of the fight. Now, we know he doesn't get a knockdown. I'm just telling you that the press narrative and mainstream media that Ward dominates the second half of the fight is contradicted by the 10th round. In my opinion, it's contradicted by the 8th round. Understand, Harold Lederman, HBO's guy, over the last 6 rounds of this fight, gives Kovalev at least 2 of the rounds. right? I mean, understand, even HBO's own score doesn't jive with the mainstream media story of Andre Ward dominating and coming back in the fight. Right? Let me say, at the end of the 10th round, Virgil Hunter, and I know he said hard things after the fight, but during the fight, Virgil Hunter turns to a guy in the corner and says, put some water down his crotch. He knows Ward needs to be woken up. We get to the 11th round. Folks, the 11th round is iffy at best. It's iffy at best. This isn't a tsunami round. If you're expecting Kovalev to come close to looking dazed and confused, you're not going to find it in the 11th round. The 11th round could go either way. I'm not going to argue with anyone who picked Ward in the 11th round or Kovalev in the 11th round. We get to the 12th round, and in the 12th round, just understand Jim Lampley actually says, I wonder if Ward is going to look back and wonder if he should have thrown more punches. Now how could there possibly be any question about Ward's level of activity in the second round of the fight if Ward is supposed to have swept the second half of the fight? If Ward is supposed to have swept the second half of the fight, right? If Jim Lampley is questioning Ward's activity level, how is he supposed to have swept the last 6 rounds from Kovalev? Folks, let's boldly go where the film takes us. You know, Andre Ward did do better in the second half of the fight than he did the first half, right? But he didn't sweep the second half of the fight. On my scorecard, he loses the 8th round. He loses the 10th round. I don't even know how someone could score the 10th round for Andre Ward. To me, the 11th round, that's a draw round. That's a toss-up round. I thought Kovalev even looked better in the 12th round. In other words, the second half of the fight is even keel. The first part of the fight is all Kovalev. So I'm stunned. I can't even put it into words. I have no idea how a pretty comprehensive performance by Kovalev somehow got turned into him losing his titles. Right? I don't even consider this fight a draw. I thought Kovalev won the fight. Let me say, too, that I'm surprised there is an outrage here at the verdict. Right? What I want people to do is to go back in boxing history. You're going to find out that Jersey Joe Walcott beats Joe Louis. Joe Louis was so certain that he lost the fight that he left the ring. Then they announced Louis the winner. Right? Louis didn't think that he won the fight. If you were a Joe Louis guy, you knew he lost the fight. So here, I understand there's a rematch clause. Folks, it has to happen. Understand, the rematch is going to be much more lucrative. And I mean much more lucrative for both guys than the first fight. Because I'm guessing, as this film makes the rounds around the globe, there's going to be a group of you who are going to look at this film and are going to say to themselves, this ain't right. Right? You're going to look at this film and you're going to say, Ward was lucky to get this decision. right? You know, it takes a while. I've seen this happen before in boxing, where the night of the event, we all think one thing, right? Then the story comes out and people take a victory lap, right? Great comeback. What a fighter, right? But let me tell you, in my opinion, when you are a great fighter, and that's who Andre Ward is, right? He's still one of the best in the sport pound for pound, in my opinion, right? But when you're a great fighter, you're better off losing fights like this, right? I'm not saying fight to lose, but I mean, when you lose the fight in the ring, you're really better off with the judges acknowledging that you lost. Because when you get undeserved wins like this, to me, it devalues your past accomplishments, right? People then start looking at your unbeaten record, and they start saying to themselves, oh, come on, this is unbeaten with an asterisk, right? This is unbeaten where I take Kovalev in the rematch, right? I heard people, won't name them, let's give folks anonymity, but I heard people in the press say, well, why the rematch? What can Kovalev do differently? You know, actually the question is, what can Ward do differently? Right? Kovalev doesn't have to do a damn thing differently. As it is, he won this fight by 3 or 4 rounds. Now, I know people are going to be outraged. Fine. Right? Let's be respectful of everyone's opinion here. But if you're going to take a guy's title, you really have to take the guy's title. Right? I feel the same way about this that I felt about the Darren Barker-Daniel Geale fight, where if you're fighting the champ and the champ knocks you down, right, the champ wins several rounds, right? And the rounds you win are close, where people are looking at, you know, the 10th round and they're like, you know, did he win the round? You know, to me, that doesn't help your legacy. Let me say this too. Nothing is more important in boxing than credibility, right? There's going to be a group of fans. They won't say much, but they'll feel this way. It's kind of like, well, I'm not going to get political, but they're going to be a group of fans out there, and they're going to listen to the presentation of Max Kellerman for this fight. Kellerman usually does a great job, but they're going to listen to the presentation of Max Kellerman on this fight, and they're going to think to themselves, wow, this doesn't seem right. Right? That's not what I'm seeing. Right? They're going to think that the system is tilted toward one fighter, and I'm just telling you, that's the worst thing that could happen to any fighter. So my advice to these two guys, really for their own legacies, and I'm serious about this, for their own legacies, is they need to do this fight again. I think Andre Ward needs to fight more than Kovalev. Right? I think Kovalev has already proven his point. As I said, you're hearing about a second half comeback that doesn't show itself on film. Okay, Ward does better than he did the first half. That's not necessarily a comeback. If you believe that Andre Ward won the 10th round, please make the case in the comment section to this video. Right? Let me just say too, understand, I know what I'm saying here is a point of view that really hasn't been reflected in mainstream media. I only deviate from Harold Letterman over the first 6 rounds by 1 round. You realize that? You realize on Letterman's scorecard, the fight is over going into something like the 11th round. Understand, as you're looking at the last 6 rounds of the fight, the only question is whether Andre Ward is going to save his unbeaten streak by getting a KO. Or at least make it a debate by getting a knockdown or multiple knockdowns. That moment never came in this fight. Andre Ward takes several rounds to even get inside and then isn't able to stay inside. There are moments in the fight where Andre Ward tries to get inside and Kovalev is strong enough to just push him back. Literally, just, use Ward's game against him. On HBO, you're going to hear them talking about the pacing. It's some of Roy Jones's best work. He says Ward is a lot like Hopkins, right? I agree with that 100%. Jones goes further and says they both like to slow down the fight to a pacing where only they feel comfortable. Andre Ward is never in control of the pacing of this fight. Right? The judges' scorecards that have him dominating the last half of the fight, I have no idea what fight those judges were watching. In my opinion, if this fight were held in Russia, Kovalev would probably win by 3 or 4 rounds. Right? The question in the last round wasn't who wins the last round. It should have been, does Ward get a stoppage? So, to the gamblers, my ultimate constituency, you need to view this fight as really a showcase on Kovalev's ability. Right? Kovalev right now, to me, looks like the best fighter at light heavyweight. Right? Now that could change. Boxing has moments that change perception. Right? Ali does win the rematch against Joe Frazier. In the Thriller in Manila, he leaves no doubt. Right? Well, he leaves some doubt, but he clearly wins that fight. Right? Frazier quits on his stool. Ward could make a statement, make a showing, right? Lord knows he realizes that his right hand's not going to be effective. So he goes a little bit left-hand centric. And he's throwing some big left hands, wasn't able to land with a big left hand, right? Who knows? Maybe he becomes the first guy to stop Kovalev. There are ways that Ward could turn the tables, right? But from where I sit today on Thanksgiving 2016, Kovalev won this fight. The judges didn't acknowledge it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't acknowledge it, right? Ward is going to have to do better than this to win my scorecard if there's a rematch. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I know many of you are going to disagree with me. Okay, fine. As you disagree, tell me who on your scorecard won the 5th round. Tell me who on your scorecard won the 10th round. Tell me whether on your scorecard Andre Ward sweeps the last 6 rounds or whether he wins 4 of the last 6. If he wins 4 of the last 6, tell us the 2 rounds in the first half of the fight. In fact, it'd have to be more than 2, wouldn't it? Because Ward gets knocked down in the first half of the fight. Tell us the 3 rounds in the first half of the fight that you gave to Ward to make this fight even debatable. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope to hear from you. I look forward to your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.